Uh, this webinar is about digital marketing for e-commerce and where the shift is happening, after the pandemic. So that's what the big question is in front of all of us. So we have Midun with us, who heads the digital marketing practice for Here and Now, which is a multicultural marketing agency based in the UK. And he has been extremely kind to come over and talk to us about some of their findings around the e-commerce space recently. So I hope the session is useful. We will also be talking about some actionables towards the end of the session. So here on this slide, you can see some of the details where you can reach us. So you can reach Here and Now at Here and Now 365. That's their handle. You can reach us at zoho.com/commerce. You can also write directly to us at marketing@zohocommerce.com. So that's the introduction from Zoho. I represent Zoho Commerce. I have a very interesting thing to share about Midun. I was speaking to him the other day, and it turns out that he has been through the worst of the pandemic. His family has been hit with the virus, and he himself has had, I don't know whether it's a misfortune or is it fortunate that you have already gone through that whole thing. But I would really love, and I'm sure a lot of people would really love to hear what really happened with it, and take us through some of your experiences during that time, and how does that really impact in the way you think, and then over to how it impacts your work, right? How it impacts digital marketing in the region.
Certainly. Everybody can see me, and we are all on the same market here.
Perfect.
Perfect. Hello, guys. I'm very glad to know that there are people from all over the place here. We've got quite a few coming in from multiple locations. Very glad to see that all sectors are represented here. And I see that someone from Benin has joined in, which is a very kind surprise, because I haven't spoken to anybody from that region in a very long time, and it's quite pleasant to see that. Welcome to everybody from India, from Europe, all parts of the world. And let's get started with an introduction. So my name is Mithun. I head the digital marketing division at Here and Now 365. We are the largest multicultural agency in London. And we specialize in making sure that larger companies, smaller companies, and startups, everybody who is targeting an audience which is not mainstream British audience, is able to get to that audience in a manner which is nuanced and in a manner which is relevant for that particular audience. We have been doing quite a bit of interesting stuff here, and we've had quite a bit of changes. The entire world has had to adapt to the pandemic and the changes that it has forced upon us. Thankfully, we were very digital from day one, so that was easier for us to adapt to, but still it was quite a change. And for me, it was a little bit more of a challenge because both myself and my mother were both diagnosed COVID positive, and we both had slightly worse symptoms. I didn't have anything major, but it wasn't a pleasant experience. I'm sure everybody in different parts of the world would have been there, and we are volunteering anything possible from our end. That's all going well and good. But as an experience, the one thing that really struck me was it did feel like a very nasty flu. That is what it personally felt. But the symptomologies is now there. But the one thing that really stood out was like there was no smell, there was no taste. And with the symptomologies, everybody knows what the story is and where it has been. The one, as Ashish mentioned, you could consider it a little bit of a blessing in disguise, or as we all look at the silver lining in the cloud whenever there is a dark sky. And the one thing that had helped me was with the fact that we all live very busy lives. And this gave us a chance for a lot of us to have a lot more time on our hands. We no longer commute. We no longer have as busy a schedule as it used to be. I don't know if that is true for a lot of people working from home, because for me personally, since I've started working again, I spend way more hours working than I should when I was in the office. Now that we are back on, and now that we are here, let's try and see how we can pick it up and move forward. And if there are any specific questions on this, we are more than happy to pick up as we go along as well. But I hope all of you are doing well, and I hope all your loved ones are safe and sound as well. Ashish, could you put the deck on again,
Yeah,
please?
sure, I'll do that. You will have to give us just a second. Just a couple of hygiene things I'll cover here, Midun. If anybody has any questions, there is a question. There's a icon on your left of the screen which says questions. You can write in your questions here, and we have a couple of our team members who are there to answer those. And if you have any comments for us, please do post them on chats. So just a minute, Midun, and I will put the deck.
And let's see, now we have the deck back on. And so this is just an intro on who I am and who I represent. So see, my background is in data analysis. I've always come up with network security, and I've always looked at marketing or digital marketing as a data intensive solution. It is not just the data, but it is always to understand the questions of what are you trying to achieve, who are you trying to reach, and use the data to leverage and understand, are we doing the right bits? Are we getting there? Are we hitting those elements correctly? And all righty. Perfect. Okay, guys. And Ashish, if there are any major questions that come up in the middle, could you just prompt and I can pick up, because I can't see the other one. All right. So guys, see, our expertise is in digital marketing. We will be covering through three major points. How has the pandemic affected the market? How can we leverage digital during this pandemic to make the best of where we are? And how can we look at data? How can we improve ourselves? And the key takeaways is going to be, as individuals, as business owners, as digital practitioners, what can you do better? We will look at some basic solutions, because we were not entirely, we will be trying it for the base common denominator. But specific questions at the end of the day, if you have specific questions, I've seen some of them pop up already. We'll be walking through them, and we can look at specific actions on what you want to achieve. Is there a specific goal you want to achieve? We can do all of that. Let's pick up. This is what we'll be doing tonight. It's a very simple presentation. We won't be diving into too much data. The sources are available in the handouts. You can pick up the data if you're interested in the actual source material. The numbers, the full data is available there, but we'll be looking at high-level data at this point. So how has digital landscape changed with the lockdown? Now, in most countries, we've had this happen for nearly 2, if not 3 months. And lockdown has forced us to be digital, because everybody has to work, business has to continue. You have to get the bills paid, your clients have to get the bills paid, your suppliers have to get the bills paid, everybody needs to move. And the only way to do that right now with social distancing and lockdown is to run things digitally. And which we have seen is, the stricter the lockdown, the bigger the jump in digital activity. We have seen a high increase in social media use and an extreme increase in calls, especially video calls, even in audiences where it has not been prevalent before. We've seen an acceleration in the adoption of the e-commerce. We've seen a large number of people who were primarily offline sales was their primary source of revenue, has moved on to the e-commerce or online sales model. People who were even retailers, people who were business owners, a lot of them are moving online. And earlier it was like, are you online? Now, why aren't you online? After the pandemic, everybody expects you to be online. Earlier, you were like, okay, are you online? No, okay, fine, well and good. Now you are expected to be online. If you're not online, you're missing out. And the last point would be, what are the opportunities for digital advertisers? Whether you be a client who wants to reach your audience, whether you are a digital marketer who wants to do a better job, or if you are a consumer who wants to understand how all of this works out for you. So these are the points that we'll be running through. And the first point I'd like to make is this is this is unprecedented. Now, everybody has been using that word everywhere, and with good use, for the reason being, this hasn't happened in our lifetimes. The closest analog that we can think for this has been the 1930s influenza pandemic. but that is probably more relatable for our grandparents or maybe even their parents, because it was a few generations ago. And for us, in our living memory, since we have not had anything this major come up, and this has been unprecedented. So nobody has anything to compare against. Since we became digital, there has never been a challenge like this that has affected global business, that has affected global economy, that has affected each of us individually. The recession was a big deal, but the recession affected a lot of us. But this has affected almost all of us. I don't think there is, whether you are President Trump or whether you are a regular employee like me, you have all been affected to an unprecedented degree. This has never happened to us in our lives. So a lot of it is things we don't know what the long-term implications for this is. We don't know what the economic implications for this is. But the idea is, let's understand what we know. Let's look at it. Let's make reasonable sense and assumptions based on it, and then we'll move forward. The one thing that we've seen is digital adoption across the world has jumped tremendously. We had an 8% increase in global digital users. That is a 10%, that's nearly 400 million people in the last 2 months alone. It used to be a much smaller percentage of growth, but it has jumped significantly. Social media users is also growing by that range because a number of even older audiences, personally, for example, my mom was a casual social media user. She has now started using social media to a degree where if she was using half an hour earlier, now she's on 4 hours. So I know a number of people who've seen that, and we've done some customer studies on our end where we did 1,000 users across UK, and we asked them what has changed, and 71% of them has said their amount of time spent on social media has doubled or more. 30% of them said that their amount of time spent on social media has tripled or quadrupled. Half the time globally, that we saw a study by Global Web Index and by Facebook Data Report, that half the time spent on our phones, mobile phones in 2019, was on social media apps, which was already there. And this March saw a 200% increase on calls and video calls. With everybody locked down, you want to reach out to your loved and beloved, people who you work with, people you want to talk to, you want to have a face-to-face interaction. Earlier, you could do this in person. You don't have that. And this has seen a tremendous growth. People are now used to the concept of a mobile phone being their primary point of contact with the outside world. And that is what is relevant to us as digital marketers or users or consumers of digital marketing. Earlier, the things that you would consider off-site, the things you would consider offline, we are now getting slowly used to the idea of it happening through a phone or a PC or a device. In some certain regions, we've seen a 1,000% increase, which is a tremendous volume in terms of calls and volumes, because obviously we no longer have face-to-face communications. We could walk and go see our cousins who live 3 feet away or 3 roads away. We can't do that anymore. Now you do that via social media or you do it via video calls or one of these apps. Media consumption has increased tremendously because the average free time available has increased significantly in Europe, in UK, and even in all parts of the world. You no longer spend time on commutes. You no longer if you have to get to work and you live 1 hour away, you have to get you're saving 2-3 hours a day every day because you don't commute to office, you don't commute back. That has seen browsing has increased significantly. You're consuming more content, whether that be via TV, whether that be via box sets. I'm sure a lot of you have consumed a lot more box sets, whether it be Casa de Papel or whether it was Peaky Blinders, as I did. But you would have caught up on series that you were meaning to catch up on, or at least I hope you did. Media habits, this is again the same data that we looked at, but we have seen on an average 20 to 30% increase in consumption habits. What people have seen, and this is across, the data is available at the bottom, the sources and the actual data is available. This is publicly available data. And what we have seen is everything from broadcast media all the way to news coverage has increased significantly. Now, whatever your takes on the news, whether you think they are doing too much, they're not doing enough, whether the coverage is positive, negative, I will leave that to you individually. But the number of people consuming that content, whether that be on TV, whether that be on social devices, or whether that be on Facebook or on Instagram, any of those channels, has significantly increased. Now, let's see how that affects us. And this is a breakdown of how people are doing it. We have seen, obviously, 76% of people are on mobile devices. I personally would used to be a huge fan of my laptop. I couldn't live without it. But nowadays, in the last 1 year, I no longer need my laptop. I can survive on my mobile alone, whether it be watching series, whether it be watching, sending emails, anything. We've completely moved over to a more mobile friendly society with larger screens, with larger mobiles. We are now perfectly okay using that as a primary device. We go to a laptop when we have longer things to do, and that consumption pattern has changed as well. So, whatever marketing you do, whatever solutions you consider, whatever websites you build, please make sure that and consider that majority of your people, majority of the visitors, consumers, clients who visit, who utilize your product, are going to be using this via a smartphone. Make sure that it is primarily compatible there and also for your larger solutions. Now, the impact of this is one, the primary impact of this is e-commerce has grown in leaps and bounds. We have seen an average variance in UK's e-commerce market is around 6 to 7%, or maybe 10 to 12% on festive seasons. We have seen a 37% increase in e-commerce and online shopping. This is excluding any essentials. So we are not looking at purely essential purchases like bread and milk and eggs. We're not counting that here. Excluding that, we have seen a 37% increase in e-commerce and online shopping. When this survey was done by Global Web Index in April, what they've done is people are spending a lot more time shopping online because one, that is the only option they have. Second, we have a lot of us have found that we have more disposable income because the daily spends, the frivolous expenses, a lot of it has come down. I'm not saying that that is true across the board for everybody. A lot of people are finding it difficult with the changes in job scenarios, with furlough happening, with some layoffs in some parts of the world. But for taking an average consumer who still has a job, who's still working, who's still on this similar scenario, average spending has decreased because they are no longer spending on a lot of day-to-day items. You no longer go to Costa and buy a coffee. You would rather order it online now that if you wanted one. There's no more Starbucks, there's no more lunch out, there's no more drinks with the boys on a Thursday. So all that has come down, which has led to people switching to online and picking up a lot more disposable income, which they are using for retail therapy, at least for some of them. With more than half the internet users, what we've seen is people are spending more time shopping online, and this is based on user data. Now, we don't know yet if the entire mindset is going to remain and continue after the entire lockdown changes. But the one thing that we can guarantee is we have seen research in the past, and this is actually a longer solution, that it roughly takes 4 to 6 weeks of something for it to become an actual habit. So if you do an activity for 6 weeks, you would be considered to form it as a habit. And we have seen that people automatically pick up and tend to continue that. Now, depending on the frequency, if you do it every day, you're 87% likely to continue with that habit. If you're doing it maybe once a week, not so much. But if you have switched your primary shopping online, we expect to see a 40 to a 47% increase in people who prefer to stick to that mode going forward as well. Even if the lockdown ends, we will still have health concerns. We don't know how Corona is going to move forward. We don't know how COVID-19 is going to progress. Are we safe? Are we unsafe? If you've been infected and you are negative, good for you, your chances are better. But if you've not, then your health implications are still relevant. You don't know who you're coming in contact to. While the lockdown comes off, we are still not 100% because the majority of the world population has not yet been exposed thanks to the lockdown and to the efforts of global governments and all that. Now, which leaves us with a chance that users might prefer to not go out. Users might prefer to minimize contact, which is non-essential. So we might see that we expect to see a 40 to 47% increase in online purchases, in online grocery shopping, and an enduring change in behavior because they have had this 2 to 3 months of this new behavior, and we expect this to continue going forward. Now, this is the average time of data spent shopping online. UK is 37%. The highest increase has been in China and Singapore, but US, UK, Brazil, because these were markets which are already very much online. We have seen a high increase in UK, we have seen a very high increase in India, but this is primarily focused on the Western world. UK and US, we haven't seen as great a jump because majority of the audience and the users were already online. They were already using it online. India, we've told, is a 32% growth in that market, and this is as of April 1st. Now, once we have the data for April as well, we are looking for another set of data. We are predicting that this will jump to 41 or maybe even 42% because that is the volume that the retailers have come back to us. Our own e-commerce sites that we manage have seen tremendous volume increase in April again. Now that deliveries have started for non-essential items as well, we've seen a tremendous increase for hair care, for beauty, for non-essential food items. We've seen a tremendous increase in volume in all those parts. So this is where we are, and we expect this trend to continue at least for the next few months. Again, this is a breakdown of what is the audience. The younger audience have spending way more time, but the big surprise was the fact that 45 and above has jumped significantly higher. 45 and above now have comparatively equal rates of online shopping to the 16 to 24-year-olds, which was quite a bit of a surprise because they have never been the primary users of online shopping. It has always been a younger audience. But what we are seeing is even the older audiences are now switching to online. They are spending more time online, and now they're getting used to the concept of buying things online. We have seen, as we said, we have seen a great increase in social media usage. Primarily, it is contacts and communication, and a lot of us have started communicating again for news media, to understand what is happening. We've seen that women are were very much more likely to spend more time on social media than men, but this is true across the board. Both men and women have increased, but percentage-wise, younger women have been spending much longer on social media as compared to other sectors of men. This is not a huge variance, but there is significantly more. So we are expecting about 18%. If we compare men 16 to 24 and women 16 to 24, 18% more, both absolute numbers and relative numbers, is higher for younger women to be spending more time online. The benefit for you as an audience is two things. One, your targeted ads and your digital ads can now reach all of these people, all of these elements, 16 to 24s, 24 to 34s, all of these elements are now spending more time online, which means if you're targeting them, you are now able to reach those people. If your audience is this, if this is the audience that you want to reach and try and understand, this is all available on our end. Now, this is where we come to the opportunities for digital advertisers. And if you're a digital consumer, to understand what is changing. If you are on YouTube, if you've been on YouTube for the last 2 or 3 months, you might have noticed that YouTube puts way more ads up than usual. Their frequency has changed. You're seeing more ads. The number of slots available for ads in longer movies would have increased. You must have noticed that. Facebook's advertising audience, this is based on the Facebook ad data that they have released, has jumped significantly. We've seen a 4.5% growth in that audience in the first 3 months. And what we've seen is because a lot of the number of people online has increased significantly, and because both Facebook and Google, who've both pushed up the number of available ad spots, we have seen that while their total volume has increased, we've seen that the cost of advertising per impressions have declined by 15 to 20%. We have also seen that because people have more free time, people are more at home and they don't have an external distraction to take them away, or that they are not likely to go and check it out, or I'll check it out when I go out next week. We have seen that people have been clicking, the engagement rates, the click-through rates. So when you see an ad, we've seen that in the last 3 months compared to the same period in 2019, we are nearly 23 to 27% increase in people clicking on those ads, which means that per click, your cost per conversion, your cost per acquisition, all of this has dropped. And this is a very good sign for digital marketers, for digital advertisers, or if you're a business owner who would like to reach your audience digitally, because a pound that you spend now is worth £1.25 from last year. And we've also seen, we have seen way more clicks, we've seen way more interactions with the users, as we said earlier. And one more thing is, we have also seen that women are a little more interested in interacting with these advertisements than men. That has been true all across, but we've seen that there is a significant growth in that number. So the percentage of women, and the surprising thing is, and the key insight that we have is, when people between 35 to 65 have been engaging with this aspect significantly higher. We have seen the number of conversions are much higher for that age group, possibly due to the reason that they have more disposable income. And we've seen that during this last 3 months, this particular bracket of 35 to 65 have seen 41% more likelihood that they will engage with this, and 28% more purchases have happened with this age group compared to the entire last financial year. Compared to the entire 2019 from Jan to December, we've seen a significant growth, 18% more for the 35 to 65, and a 41% likelihood that they will engage with this channel, which shows you that earlier generation, or an audience which was not as digitally savvy before, is now getting on here. We have seen that a huge growth is showing up for these people, and that if that was your target audience earlier, this is a very good time for you to start connecting with that audience and to understand what they are doing and how they are engaging with that particular sector. And one thing that we are asked constantly as an agency is, brands come to us and ask, should we be talking about Corona? What do you want us to do? What is a good focus point for you to talk about? And the one thing that we did was, we were not sure. We don't know how how an audience would perform. We thought that it was a good idea. So what we did is, we ran a pilot study from our end with an approximate 1,000 respondents across UK. And what we saw on our end was the fact that 51% and 64% of the users had no issues with brands advertising, but they wanted the brands to be sensible. We did not want to see an audience of 25 people hugging together at this point. We wanted them a little more sensible. They wanted the tone to be light-hearted, but not funny. They wanted the tone to be sensitive, but not super serious. So these are the items that we have seen from our end, and only 1 in 5 said they don't want ads during this time frame. So 75% of your audience is okay with it, and 51 and 64% of the audience approve. They have a positive feeling towards it, and only 1 in 4, that is less than 25% or less, are the ones who said they don't want to see ads. So if you are wondering if you should advertise, people don't mind. At least majority of them don't mind. And the other thing that we've seen is, please be mindful of the message you're putting out. If you have had an ad done from 2 years ago, which shows 20 people holding their hands and running around, or if in a crowded beach, may not be the best message. People may not react to it as well. So please be a little mindful on the messaging, on the structure of it, but they would perfectly be okay with you running ads and running through with that. This is the breakdown of what we saw when we ran the numbers, and this is based on a larger platform that We Are Social had done. And we have both these values, where the approval ratings and the people who strongly disapproved and people who are like, we don't particularly like this, is much smaller compared to the percentage of people who are like, it's okay, we don't mind, or that we are perfectly okay with it. And some people said, yeah, we want to see this. So all of this data is available. The sources are available at the bottom as well. Now, if you are a brand, if you are a digital marketer, if you are an agency, or if you are looking to move on, if your brand is in digital by now, this is the best time to start. You should already be there. If not, let's get online as much as possible. Pick up an e-commerce platform, pick up a website, make sure that you are present, you are available. There are tons of options available. We have got some basic options for you to pick up and what is available. There are a lot of free courses coming up right now. Udemy is available. You have Harvard X, you have Khan Academy. All of these guys are giving out solutions on how to be better. If you want to learn something, anything at all, we've got we've got available tutorials, we've got available data. We can, if there are specific questions, I'll take them at the end of this. We can give you suggestions on what your specific needs are. We can pick these up. And one thing that we've seen is get started as soon as possible. Don't wait for every single bell and whistle to be perfect. You can fit the flashing lights after you get started, but get started right now. You need to get onto the race because there are hundreds of others who are doing very similar things. We are all we all are unique. So see, you are unique, I'm unique, and so is 7 billion people out there who are all unique. We have ideas, but there might be somebody else who's on the same boat who might be doing very similar things, and there are only a finite set of audiences that you're reaching. There is only so much money in the world. So if you want to get started as soon as possible. You have a minimum, make sure you have a minimum standard. There's a minimum viable product. Get it going. Then we can add all the fine tuning as you go along. And what I would recommend is every month, if not possible, every 2 weeks ideally, but if not every month, make sure you look at your data. Who is coming in? What are they doing? There are tons of options available. You can look at Hotjar, you can look at Mouseflow. These both tools will give you an idea of what people are doing on your website. Are they scrolling up? Are they scrolling down? Where are they coming? Where are they leaving? What are they spending time on? These would let you see what a user does with his mouse on your website. This is quite easily available for a lot of them. There are basic options and free options available, but the paid options are also not expensive. It's like $30 for a year. You also have Google Analytics. Leverage the free tools. That is what I would recommend. For optimization and improvement, please leverage the available set of resources. Google Analytics is a must if you don't have it. If you're running any sort of marketing on social media, Google Pixel setup is a must. And for both of these solutions, you have resources available from both Facebook and from Google. Google, Facebook, they have a platform called Google Business/Learn, and it is also called Facebook Blueprint if you want to understand how more of this works. But pick these up, go there, and whatever your queries are, there is a 90% chance that Facebook already has a very curated course which takes 20 minutes or less for you to go through and understand what this is. I've been doing this for a very long time, and there are things that I found and went, oh, this is interesting. Or there are aspects of it that I was like, oh, I haven't considered this. So you have this with a very large team from Facebook and a very large team from Google Digital Garage running these. And if you are new, I would recommend you start with Digital Garage and then go on to Facebook. But whatever your primary medium is, please do look at both of these. If there are any queries on that, we can always pick it up. And I think we can switch on to the, see, before we end, one thing that we would recommend is the world has switched to digital. Our primary news briefings are digital. People are working from home. This is the time to get on the boat. If we wait too long, there would be somebody else who's doing something similar and they would take the boat and we'd be left behind. Ashish, now these are the primary points we want to pick up. And we are here now. We are who we are. And if there are any questions, we'll leave the floor open to questions now.
Hey, Madan, yeah, sorry. I was just changing the thing. Thank you so much. That was extremely informative. While we wait for questions, I thought, I was looking through some of our existing information that we had, and I thought I'll take the viewers through a couple of things which might be interesting to add on to what you've just shared with us. So,
Perfect.
Sure, it is. So, you were talking about, just going live right now, and you also touched upon this briefly. So we came across this very interesting statistic, which says that 55% of British consumers think brands are taking advantage of the pandemic right now, right? And which is a very weird thing to see,
Yes.
right? Because people are trying, as in nobody's trying to really take advantage. The idea is that it's probably a problem with messaging that is going out, right? So
we did. This was a part of the audience that we ran from our end, and what we found was people were really unhappy when I bought a shoe brush from you 3 years ago, and you send me a 3-page email saying this is what we are doing about coronavirus. You are a shoe brush company. We don't care what you're doing about. So if it is relevant to you, please, but don't, just because you are a company, you don't. And this is what we asked people. Are people, there is too much messaging? They said yes. So we asked them. We called up 25 of them from each set of the age group, and 70% of them said we are getting way too many emails, which does not make sense. We don't care, and just because I bought something from you 3 years ago, I don't want to hear from you. So don't stop using it
Absolutely.
as a marketing technique with the word
Absolutely.
corona, corona, corona everywhere. Be
Yes.
you. We are okay with the brand,
Absolutely.
but we don't want you tagging
Absolutely.
onto
I think
corona for
that's a
anything and
trap.
everything.
I've been a marketer for over a decade. You have, probably even longer experience. And, that's a trap all marketers fall into, right? I mean, you see an opportunity in front of you. It's almost like an elephant in the room. What do you do? Right. So, what we were sort of talking about, and what we at Zoho have started talking about, is something called compassionate commerce. Uh, how does one practice compassionate commerce, right? So what we are talking about is have your marketing messaging driven by empathy, right? Your entire marketing should be designed around empathy right now. There was a lot of great marketing coming out of the UK, supporting their essential workers, hospitals, local shelters, etc., which we were very impressed by personally. And I think you touched upon this, and this is one of the most important things that that's there in the market right now. So we recently saw this advertisement and a statistic with it, which says that a news item like this, where AT&T as a company, I mean, everybody knows AT&T, and it's uh, how people, it's famous for or infamous for having negative mentions on social media.
Complaints, yes.
Yes,
Everybody
exactly.
loves to complain about AT&T. It's like we complaining about BSNL or we
Absolutely.
complaining about our
Right. So,
electricity bills.
and this is pretty impressive, right? When you're talking about 58% increase in their positive mentions with something like this, right? So anything that a company is doing or you are doing for your employees is a messaging to the market right now, because focus is on companies, focus is on brands who might take a misstep at this point, right? We also saw that people are creating shopping experiences. They are they're talking about, of course, stuff like contactless delivery, scheduled in store, you can schedule your shopping. So people are
Available scheduled pickups and curbside
absolutely.
pickups and
So
all of that is
these are
available here
tiny
as well.
changes that you can make if you're running a store in this case, or in whichever case. What you're doing is making very tiny pivots. I mean, you shouldn't even call these pivots, right? You're making those very tiny changes, and that subtly, talks about the problem. It talks about the COVID-19 issue without really talking about it. Yeah, and
I agree. I agree. The one example that somebody quoted to me, this was, I think, a healthcare worker who quoted to me is,
yeah,
see, I care about you. But now, at this point, when everybody has their own issues, when everybody has their own frustrations, if you smile and make
yeah,
one tiny bit of effort
yeah,
to me as a customer, I
correct,
would remember you forever. So we went in, and there was this X-ray technician who was like, "See, we've known her before because my mother works in the hospital. We've known her before, and what we felt was we went in there, and she was like, 'Oh, how lovely to see you.' And then she was different from we were, and we were like, 'What happened?' She said, 'See,
right,
everybody is going through a hard time.' And she said the one thing that we've done from our end is make it easier for them to consume, make it easier for them to do what they came here to do. If you are an e-commerce store, make it easier for your consumer to buy. Tell them we don't want to
correct,
say we are doing everything for corona. We Nobody cares. But we want to do what are you doing it? Keep it
yes,
simple, keep it relevant, keep it
perfect,
bite-sized.
yeah,
And as she's very rightly pointed, if you can make some small changes to the landing pages, to the primary pages when they come in, not just a banner saying we are here for you for Corona. What are you doing? How are you making it easier? If you are doing anything, put it up. If not, just put up a banner saying the one thing that we saw, which was extremely successful, is just a simple banner saying talk to us if you have any problems. We
yeah,
love to hear from you. Any messaging which was slightly positive. Don't make fake claims. Don't say we are doing everything for corona. If you're not doing anything, that's fine. You don't have to, but be genuine and be simple. Keep it as minimal as possible. That messaging has worked wonders. And another example is NHS positive references went up to
yeah,
3000%. The number of positive mentions for
right,
NHS was ridiculously high. And the one primary factor for this is the UK government deployed emergency funds and emergency management teams for running major social media updates across all NHS trusts. All major NHS trusts were given the imperative
okay,
that please communicate. We want them to feel a sense of community with the healthcare workers. And that has worked tremendously well. The idea would be now for any marketing or any solution, if you have a digital presence, build a sense of community. Help them in some little ways. Bring out case stories. If somebody reaches out to you, they have a genuine case, you help them out, call the customer, ask them, can I put a picture of you? Nobody would mind. If they do, fine.
Absolutely.
Just put it up as an anonymous story. That we were able to do this. If you have anything, reach out to us. Be genuine.
I think we have also talked about this in the past, Mithun, that subpar content, the days of subpar content and just getting by, I need to make 2 posts a week.
Is done.
That those days are gone, right? If somebody sees, or if a
Yes.
customer, so I have a friend who runs an e-commerce, a sustainable commerce, sustainable cotton company based out of Goa, and he has this amazing, personality in his brand, and he sort of recently talked. He recently stopped advertising completely. Right. He said that I'm not going to advertise. All my advertisements, in the sense, all that money is going to charity right now. And instead, what he changed it over to was a loyalty program, which essentially says that 30% of every purchase goes to this, right? Goes to charity. And that sort of I don't know how exactly his numbers look, but the engagement he's getting on that is just amazing, right? So there is a business benefit you will get out of respecting your consumers' wishes in that sense.
Exactly. Be genuine. What we've seen is we work with the large supermarket chain. I'm not at liberty to tell you the name, but they're one of the top 4 in the UK. And we work with them on a charity campaign where what we do is we work with them very closely. And this was during Ramadan. And we told them is the brand usually does this every year with the sense of community. And what they do is they partner with individual companies who sell their products through the supermarket chain. And what they do is they would pay a small amount per package sold during this period to a charity of the consumer's choosing, or the charity that they have picked up in the past. It'll be something, one of the charities that they support is Click Sergeant, which is UK's largest charity which deals with cancer in young adults and children. So if you are a brand, and if you personally as a business owner feel that you can do something, give your users a chance. You could ask them, what would you like? These are the charities that we are thinking of support, run a poll. Let them make the choice. Your users feel a part of your community. They feel, okay, as a user for XYZ Limited, you might be a shopping brand, you might be a clothing brand, pick something relevant. If you are a user, help the artisans, help a charity which teaches kids, whatever. If you can do something, give them a choice, be genuine about it. Don't do it just for the sake of doing it, because we've heard major complaints for a certain brand in Bangalore who ran a big promotional campaign where they sent people with posters and everything to Palace grounds, and half an hour later there was nobody there. So if you're doing it, do it well. But do it simple. It can be very small. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to get Shah Rukh Khan involved. Or you don't have to spend 1 lakh rupees on it. It could be 100 rupees. It could be 50 rupees. It could just be a good message, but be genuine about it. Don't oversell.
Correct. This is one of our favorites. This is where, of course, the Body Shop makes these products.
The lady from the left, the lady who's second from the right, is a friend of my mother. So I've seen this picture personally.
That is amazing. See, and that's the sense that you were just talking about. You were talking about the NHS, and you were talking about how it really makes a difference, right? And this is already there. Cool. So again, thousands of examples right now. We just chose to pick a few from what we saw. So the idea, again, just to have a quick recap, is that we're trying to run away from subpar content. A lot of our energy is going to be spent on messaging and the content that we're creating, how we are reaching out to customers, whether we're annoying them, are we pushing them to the brink of annoyance, or are we actually giving them a sense of goodwill and community, as you pointed out. So I think that's what this is about. Digital marketing does not fundamentally change in the way it has always operated, but in terms of outcomes, but how it does change is there's no sitting on the fence anymore, right? You can't decide whether to go digital at this point.
Right. You have to pick a side.
So that's what it is.
Let's
Sorry.
take some.
No,
Yeah,
Mithun,
go
over
ahead.
to you.
Sorry. Continue. No, I was just wondering, see, while this is true, we have been talking about it from a slightly wider perspective. I believe that, there might be specific queries that people might have, as in, see, one big challenge that we faced is a lot of fraud has been happening for financial fraud on e-commerce. How do I protect my consumers? What tactics do I use? Do I want to run social media? Do I want to run emails? Do I want to send out tweets? Do I do 100 a day? Do I do 10 a day? So the questions are
Yeah,
coming up down to specific drill downs. What do you want us to do? I think a lot of people have a little bit of confusion. So if there are any specific questions, let's pick them up. See if we can
absolutely.
answer any of them.
So when we were starting, we had a question which was, how do you find which works better, social or email? Do you want to tackle that?
Uh, yeah. So primary route from my end is run a very small campaign. If your budget for a month is 10,000, do a campaign for 2,500 for email, 2,500 for social. See what it does. And or run 1 month on digital, run 1 month on social when you're starting out, and then make sure that you're comparing apples to apples. If you send your email out to 100 people, and if you send your social media campaign to uh, 100,000 people, don't expect the same results. But for e-commerce stores, email has worked very well. Social gives you awareness. Social gives you people who will hear of you, who will see of you, and then come through to you. And email will let you convert the people who have come in. I would say you should use both of them, but with varying degrees. Your social media should be your primary reach out. Social media is your announcement. Is that what goes out? Engage with the consumers on social media as well. You have a very good chance of talking to them, speaking to them, understanding them, and all that. But email gives you a lot more when you're shopping. It gives you the ability to go back to them and say, hey guys, you forgot this, or hey guys, this was there. Social media is your customer service and customer delight channel. That is where you make people happy. Email is where you get the money. It is where you go and target people and say, okay guys, you came, you loved this, can I interest you in picking this up? Did you forget? That sort of stuff. Social media is where you come back to them and say you treat them as individuals. Here you treat them purely as consumers.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that please be rude or anything here, but this is more functional. This is more
Correct.
a community. I think you should have both, but you need to find the right fit for each brand and each company differently. For travel, email works very well overall, and social is just a reach out. But for social and for a more personalized, so if you are an ethnic cotton brand, you might have people who want to know a lot more about you on social, and your email would be minimal. But if you are a travel brand, then again, or if you are a large site with lots of shopping cart, and if people come to you and you've seen a lot of cart abandons, then email is an excellent tool. Email cart abandon emails have a very good chance of people coming back and actually picking up and converting as consumers. Where social can only do so much for you in that sense. So it is a mix and match, but as you said rightly, it needs to be tuned for each specific
Perfect. There was this,
business.
sort of, I always found this difficult to answer. And this is Jugal who asked us, what's the percentage of budget allocation for marketing? I think it's a very fair question to ask, but very difficult to answer, I understand. So he's asked this from a startup perspective. And, you know, yeah,
That depends on one. I have one key question to ask Jugal is what business is he in? Is he B2B? Is he B2C? What is the volume and how many people does he need to make this profitable? If you're looking at 100,000 user as a minimum break even, I would say very large percentage of your operating budget on marketing. But if you only need 5 customers, then I would focus more on production and quality and then reach out to those specific audiences. Jugal is B2B. Okay, Jugal, what sector are you in, if you don't mind me asking? Jugal is an eco product. See, Jugal, then I would say, um, yeah, okay. And Align is in promotional products. Promotional products, I would say a slightly larger percentage than eco products because, see, eco products, you are reaching out to a very engaged audience already. Promotional, so let's say I would recommend somewhere close to 25 to 30%, but that is only based on your ROI. If you are making money back, perfect. If you're not, then see what are the elements which are working well and focus on those. Cut down or increase accordingly. Obviously, this is not a flat figure throughout the year. You have seasonal peaks and seasonal troughs, and then based on those promotional products and garments. Okay, garments again a slightly higher percentage as well. So 30% should do very well for you. For Jugal Eco products, I would keep it to somewhere around 20 at the moment, depending on your cash flow. If you have the volume, if you have no cash flow issues, you can pick it up. What I would say, keep it at 20 or slightly lower. And then when you have larger campaigns, push it up a little for that month or not. I wouldn't say an overall project budget for the entire year, but 20 should be a good fit. Promotional products and garments for a line, I would go a little higher, 30, maybe even 35%. But again, look at your ROI, run a 2 week campaign. Don't leave it, don't put the money in and hope for the best. Look at your money. It's like raising a plant or growing a pet. You have to look at it and see what works, what doesn't. You have to health or e-commerce, depending on what segment you are in, what kind of regulations you are under. I would say initially very high marketing. Once you have everything set, once you have everything sorted, run a closed beta or whatever, get the customer feedback, use it to improve your system. Once you feel comfortable with the system, I would go in with a very large marketing budget. The percentage of money would vary from what your funding is, what your allocations are. I'm not going to give you a hard budget, but whatever, if you are in the Middle East, it's a very different market. You need to go much higher. Your solution channels would be different. If you are in the UK and Europe, digital would be your primary route. In India, of course, healthcare e-commerce, I would say go big. You need some sort of media presence because TV works in India. And India, if you see it on TV, oh, TV pe dekha tha, it's a, excuse me for lapsing into Hindi, but it means I saw you on TV, which is a big brand confidence builder for, especially for the Indian market, as far as we've seen. So that helps. Obviously, once you see them on media or once you see them there, it gives you the chance to come back and then retarget those consumers. Track the audience who come to your website, retarget them on Google, retarget them on Facebook, reach out to them. Don't make it obvious, don't make it a headache for them, but be mindful of your frequency. Do not go above 7 or 8 a day, and do not go below
Yeah.
2 a day either if you want to retarget. And then you need to filter them down into buckets. If they have added something to your cart, they are a different priority. If they came to your site and left within 30 seconds, don't waste money on
Absolutely. I
them.
think a very important point within all of this is that you have to tune your budgets by campaigns, what has really delivered. And if there is also this diminishing returns problem, that the same campaign run over a long enough period of time will start giving you a diminishing return. So you have to experiment with how long a message runs in the market, and what kind of refreshed messaging you need to keep bringing, especially for B2B. Because the
Of
message is
course.
not as sticky as for B2C, usually in B2B. So
Yeah, of course. See, B2B usually has a larger shelf life for any advertisements because you do it a professional style and that works for a longer time. B2C is a lot more seasonal, a lot more topical, and a lot more relevance, is a much higher percentage. I'm not saying it is not
yeah,
relevance for left or right, but yeah, I agree with Ashish in saying please be mindful. Keep tracking if it's doing the same. Just because it did very well for you in
yeah.
March does not mean it is going to very well for you in September. Don't keep running the same thing just because it did. Keep updating, keep optimizing. Look at it every 2 weeks minimum. If you can do it every day, if you have somebody to do it every day, great. But at least a week, at least every two
Absolutely.
weeks. Don't leave it longer than that.
There's this final one from Sidonio,
Uh,
which is any hints for e-procurement?
E-procurement, Sidonia, depending on what market you are in, it could be a minefield. It could be very easy. In the US, e-procurement is doing very well. In Europe, certain parts of it. What location are you from, Sidonia? Are you in Italy? Are you in Europe, Western, Eastern, Central?
Oh,
Mozambique, I'm not familiar with that market at all. I worked for a little bit for some campaigns for South Africa and for Morocco, but I'm not familiar with Mozambique. What I would recommend is look at what your regulatory challenges are, which I've seen in a lot of emerging markets. is look at what your regulatory challenges are. When we went into Morocco for a client, we had some interesting problems, legal problems that we needed to source before going in for procurement. Make sure your contracts are ironclad. Obviously, your legal needs to vet. And I would recommend you look at some sort of an escrow service if there's a payment solution, especially in emerging markets, because the digital signatories and the digital verification processes may not be as robust. I'm not familiar with Mozambique. I'm very sorry, but I would say that make sure that you have checks and balances in place. And obviously, e-procurement, yes, but don't just because it's e-procurement, don't leave out traditional advertising channels. Sometimes e-procurement is being used by companies in the online space, but people who might consider it, the decision makers, may be consuming traditional channels as well. So a small percentage there might give you an excellent return. Have a look, test it out, let us know. Hopefully, all the best for you in Mozambique.
I just checked the time. We're 6 minutes over, so I guess that is the last question we can take. Thank you so much, Mithun, for your time. It was really nice speaking with you. Some of the things that you gave, some of the topics that you raised were actually food for thought for us. At Zoho, we will probably, think about them and do something about them. Again, thank you so much.
Perfect.
No, we are very. We should do this more often. In fact, so.
We are more than ready, and see if there is anything. We are more than ready to do another follow up. If you guys have questions, please reach out to the team at Zoho. We could always do something.
We'll be sending out a handout right after this. Session is over. It'll be on an email along with the recording of the session, and you can use that. So there were some courses Mithun has talked about, which will all be mentioned in that handout. Plus, we will also have some other information where you can go read further about specific topics on digital, which might help you at this point. We also have mentioned our email addresses in that same email and the same handout. So please go ahead and any questions at all, fire them at us. We will involve Mithun wherever needed. And that's about it from us. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Perfect. Yep. Thank you, guys. I hope you've had some takeaways. As always, we feel free to check out our blog on Herana. We have some interesting comments coming up. We always showcase our best performers, and then you can reach us, tweet us at Herana. We are more than happy to interact. And thank you very much for Zoho. Thank you, Ashish. Thank you, Sneha, for setting up the opportunity. And I wish you all the very best. And I'm sure you're plugging in. Zoho has some wonderful products that you guys might want to check out. And some of these are brilliantly placed, and especially if you are on a tight timeline or a tight budget, nothing like it. They have something that you can start and reach in 60 minutes. Is that right, Ashish? I believe you get an entire e-commerce market
from offline to online in 60 minutes. That's what we claim.
That's perfect. In today's market, nobody has a time. So if you can do something like that in 1 hour and you've always had an idea, Absolutely. Give it a shot. See how it goes.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. And thanks, Mithun. Thanks again.